Have you ever wondered how to tell if the comic that you're making is good while you're actually making it? While I was getting my degree in comics, I never really knew if my comics were good until I'd already received my formal critiques from my lecturers, and most of them were not good. And not knowing whether our comic is good or not can significantly impact our motivation to keep going. Nobody wants to bake a cake if they think there's poo in it, right? Well, in this video, I'm going to talk about 5 secrets that I wish I'd known before I started my comic that would have made me progress faster, stay consistent, and probably produce a better comic as a result. There also would have been significantly less poo involved. I won't use anyone's comic that I've mentored as an example. Instead, I'll use this comic as our case study. This is one of the comics that I made in university, and it's called Dolor because I was a pretentious student. Number 1, your first idea is shit. The problem with your first idea is that it's almost always going to be your worst idea. If you think your first idea for your comic is great, then that just means it's the only idea you've come up with, because you can't really know that an idea is good until you compare it to another idea. So when you do have an idea for your comic, write it down, walk away from it, and then come up with another idea. It doesn't have to be wildly different, it can just be a variation of your first idea. And to get you started, here are 2 really easy ways to add variety to an idea. First is the location. I made a mini comic about purgatory, and the first location idea was for it to be in a waiting room. I thought it was really clever. It was not. It's a cliche and it's been done to death. So I changed it from a waiting room to a bar, which is also really cliche, but less so. Notice that I haven't mentioned Dolor yet. That's because I didn't change that idea at all. The second thing you can change is the message. Does your comic have a central message or theme? This is more important than you think it is. Now, your comic doesn't have to be profound. It doesn't have to be a commentary on geopolitical or social issues. But if your comic isn't really about anything, then it can be quite difficult to remain inspired while you're making it. Watchmen is a commentary on justifying violence to achieve peace through the lens of the superhero. Persepolis is an exploration of war and cultural differences between the West and the East. Dolor is about grief and using substances to hide away from reality. Like I said, your comic doesn't have to be profound. It could be a commentary on your favorite flavor of ice cream. But if you know what the theme of your comic is, then it'll make creating your story and characters much easier and with a clearer message for your readers to interpret. Plus, if you explore different locations and themes, then you may end up with an idea that started as a variation but ended up as a completely new idea. Number 2, write your script as fast as possible, then rewrite it. Twice. I actually did this one. Yay, I did a thing. Well, I did half a thing. I wrote the script to Dolor as quickly as possible, but I didn't rewrite it. Not once. And boy, do I wish I did. If you write your script as fast as possible, then it gives you something to play with. Esteemed writers often say they don't rewrite their scripts, they just literally edit the crap out of them until they become good. And you can't edit a script if you don't have one, so write it really fast and then, like your initial idea, walk away from it. Give yourself some time and space away from your first draft of your script so that when you come back to it, you come back with fresh eyes. I originally wrote the script for Flowers and Shadows in a couple of weeks, and then I did 1 edit session on 1 day before I started the art. It's one of the many reasons why that comic failed, and if I'd spent a little more time on rewrites, then I wouldn't have wasted months and months of work on the art. And if I'd rewritten Dolor, then I could have explored my themes more and probably ended up with a tighter, better told story. So save yourself time, heartache, and potentially thousands of dollars by doing rewrites. There isn't a set amount of time that you should do this, and you can definitely over-egg the pudding, so don't turn into a perfectionist. But I would say, as a broad guide, that you should spend at least the same amount of time as it took you to write it to rewrite it. And although I do write, I wouldn't really describe myself as a writer, so look for people who actually do this professionally, like Neil Gaiman and Brandon Sanderson. Number 3, art style and design is all about shape. This is where a lot of new artists fall down because they don't realize this very simple concept. Everything you draw comes down to shape. I mean, everything. If you're struggling trying to figure out what to learn next, then learn how to draw shapes. See the world as shapes. A TV is a box, an arm is a cylinder, you get it. Good character designs are designs that are still recognizable in silhouette. Animators know this particularly, and if you see these cartoons, then you should be able to recognize at least some of them just from their silhouettes. It indicates strong shape design, and it means that we perceive what we're seeing more easily. Now, most new artists don't think about this because they focus too much on details, and details don't really matter. They're nice to have, but good shape design is a need to have. I'm sure we've all drawn a superhero or other original character that has like satchels and straps and complicated outfits and weapons, and we draw those because they're cool. But if the underlying shapes aren't supporting those details, then the whole thing falls down. You're building your character on sand if you don't consider shape as a top priority. And the same is true for your environments as well. This literally does apply to everything. Even panel composition within your comic relies on shapes. If you need your reader to focus in on a specific area of your panel, then you can use shape and silhouette to guide their eye. You also use good shape design when you're placing out your panels so that the reader reads them in the right order. If you listen to nothing else in this video, just remember that shape is king. I did a video on this a while ago and I'll link to that in the description, but I haven't watched that video for a while, so I don't actually know if it's any good. So I'll also link to a different video from a different YouTube channel, which is much better. I mean, to be honest, you're probably better off just watching that one. But you've got to plug your own stuff, you know? Number 4, make each page an individual goal. If your comic is too long, which it probably is, especially if this is your first or second go, then break the comic down into individual pages or small collections of pages. This is what I'm doing for Flowers and Shadows. It's probably going to be around 110 pages in length in total, so I break them down into scenes, which are anywhere from 3 to 5 pages long. Knowing that I have 3 pages to complete is a lot less daunting than knowing that I have 110 pages to complete, which feels a lot less intimidating, which is ideal because if you feel intimidated by the enormity of your work, then that can really sap your motivation and your energy levels, especially if you're tired or if you're starting to get a throat infection. I live in the country, so I go on hikes quite a lot. And when I'm walking up a ridiculously steep Welsh hill, I don't tend to look at the top. I tend to look at the ground in front of me and just focus on the next step I need to take. Because when I focus on the next step and not the top of the hill, it not only feels easier, but it somehow feels quicker to get to the top. And comics are the same. Just think about the page you're working on right now, stop thinking about the top of the hill, and you'll get from where you are to where you need to be in no time. Number 5, take your comic out of your head. I've saved this one for last because this has taken me the longest to implement in my own work. There's a concept known as building a second brain, which is where you take your ideas and your inspiration from your head and you put it in a system or a planner so that you can free up your mental headspace to think about other things and to do other things. Also, our brains are really bad at remembering stuff. I wake up and I've completely forgotten everything that I did yesterday and I have no idea what I've got planned today. The main reason why this is such a necessity for me is because I would tend to write stuff down on a scrap of paper, like a new idea or a plan or something like that, and then I'd put it down and I'd never pick it up again. Or I'd write some stuff down on a scrap of paper, some stuff in a sketchbook, some stuff on Google Docs, and then I'd sort of forget about all of them, and because they'd be really confusing. Because I'd have a thought on paper, in a book, and on Google Docs, and it would kind of not make sense to me. And so I use Notion, and don't worry, I'm not sponsored, I'm not trying to sell you anything. Notion is free for a start, but it's ideal because it has everything in one place. Now, I'm no Thomas Frank when it comes to Notion, but I've been using it long enough to know how to make a template, which is what I've done for my projects. And it's meant that I can rest easy knowing that I am free to forget everything because it's all in this template or planner. My script, references, concept sketches, calendar, to-do list, reading list, even the brush types and the brush sizes that I use in Clip Studio Paint are in there because I forget that all the time. And it's just so that my comic can be consistent. Am I the only one who forgets the brushes that they're supposed to use for their own comic? Please tell me that's not just me. Anyway, if you're all over the place like I am, or you have a ridiculous memory like I do, then either buy or make your own planner. If you have the time and the patience, I encourage you to make your own planner because then it's free. I mentioned Thomas Frank because he's like the Notion guy on YouTube and he's got a load of tutorials on his channel, so go and watch his videos to get you started. The fact of the matter is, no matter how many videos you watch or how many books you read, you're going to make mistakes. That's literally how you learn. And the 5 secrets in this video are not there to help you avoid slipping up or failing. They're there to signpost what you should look out for, so that if you create a comic that isn't quite up to your own standards, or it doesn't get the reaction that you were hoping for, then you can look back at each of these and you can see what you should improve on for next time. And the only way to make the best comics that you can make is to make better comics than you made yesterday. So make a comic. And when you do start creating your comic, come back to me, because you're going to hit a dip in your motivation at some point. And when you do, watch this video. I don't know what side it's on.